Hello, my DevNation friends. Welcome to the show. And I know you were expecting Sebi, but you know how life goes on. And because of internet issues, I know Sebi always enjoys presenting from his beautiful pool in the backyard at the beach. Today, the internet failed on him, so that's why Ed Suanaga, I'll be your host, at least until Sebi is able to come back. And today's special topic is about career. So if you're a developer, if you're interested in how can you improve your career, we have the right guest to be talking about that. And talking about guests, not only he's an expert in developing people's career, he's also one of my best friends. That's why I'm so proud to be introducing you to my great friend Bruno Souza. So welcome,
Hey,
Bruno.
hey, hello everyone. So good to be here. So good to be here with you, Adson. I was here a few minutes ago with Sabi, but his network failed in the right moment, exactly when he's gonna press start. So thanks very much. It's such an honor to be here on DevNation and on this show, right? Because this is the show, right? So thanks very much. Thanks for the invite, Edson. Thanks for the invite, Sabi. Thanks for the invite. Red Hat. It's great to be here with you and all of you here, right? So if you're here, say hello, right? I can see Wooler from Argentina and Giuseppe saying hello. So say hello wherever you are from, so we can get started. So thanks very much, Edson.
Yeah. Well, our pleasure. And I know if you never heard about Bruno, well, you're missing a lot of great content. But Bruno, he's been doing Java stuff since forever, since the beginning. And actually, Bruno is one of the founding Java champions, if you've ever heard about that. And since then, Bruno was a Java evangelist when we had still Sun, and then, but since the beginning, Bruno was trying to help people, trying to help them to improve their careers. And then, Bruno, you were a technologist, and now
Mhm.
you are a people helper. Was it a transition, or was it just same stuff all the time?
Well, so Edson, let me tell you this. I think that I was one of the people. Maybe you're watching us. You also had the problem, right? I was one of the people that got into computers because I was tricked, right? People told me, or I believe, I don't know what happened, but that computers, I would deal with computers all the time, right? And no one told me that software is developed by people, for people, used by people, and marketed by people, sold by people, and all of that. So it was, in a way, it was a big transition because I was not a people person, and I had to learn a lot of things to actually start participating more in the software development process and everything. But uh, but what I can tell you is that since I joined Sun, and I actually had a big lesson from my father about how important it is for you to help others achieve what they want, right? And so that was like a long learning process for me, but I always kept my father in my mind. Every time that people are having problems, every time that new technology will show up, every time people tell me, Bruno, but how can I learn so many things? I would always remember back to my father telling me, look, you really should focus on helping other people, right? So the more I learned what other people needed, the more I transitioned into that process of helping people more and more and more. I've been doing this for many years, but I think it was not how it started.
Okay, cool. And you mentioned that where you were tricked about going to this computer field because of people, and yeah, and I'm sure it resonates a lot with people in our audience because it happened to me as well. I decided to do a computer science course because I didn't enjoy dealing with people, so computers were easier. But again, later in my career, I just realized that, well, actually, it's about people. And a disclaimer, Bruno here, he's on the stream. That's why I'm so thankful and grateful for him to be here. He's one of the people that helped me to make this transition to not only think about computers and think about people. So we're talking about peopleware and not software and hardware. And I can testify that yes, Bruno had to make this transition, and he helped me to do that as well.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and
So let me say
please.
here, some people saying, "Oh, Sabby looks different today," right? So, so let me introduce. If you just joined the live stream, let me introduce my good friend, a person that I travel for so many different places with, and we had so much fun helping other developers, right? So with you, actually, I think point this way, right? So with you, from Red Hat, Edson Yanaga.
Yeah, thank you, Bruno. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, DJ Maddie is always here with us. He's a virtual friend. He's always joining us. That's why, yeah, DJ Maddie, we almost tricked you today. Yeah,
Yeah.
because not the typical French. Maybe I can pretend a French accent. Who knows?
Who knows, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I see. Yeah, I know. Who doesn't know Adson, right? I mean, you don't know me, but I know Adson. Everyone knows Adson. So hello from Netherlands says either, and Peter says don't know anyone that wasn't tricked, right? Yeah, we all got into this thinking that we all gonna deal with computers. And there's another thing that we tricking on, right? We think that people are easy, and I mean actually people are hard to deal with, right? But computers are easy to deal with. We are also tricked on that, right? Computers have quirks and people also have quirks, right? So anyway, we have to learn both, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, we were all tricked, and I know some people have more trouble trying to make this transition, like thinking about computers and thinking
Mhm.
about people. And I don't know, since you're very experienced in that, would you have some tips to share with us about if people like are kind of stuck in their career? What are some steps that they could take to help them to improve their careers?
Okay. So Adson, one thing is that every career is different because every person is different, right? So, to really answer that question, I'm gonna need help from everyone in the audience. So tell me how your career is right now. What is that you want to do? What is the thing that you're feeling that you're stuck? What is the next step that you would like to take, but you're not so sure how? What is the biggest question you have about your career? Because then we can really focus on you. But the way I see Edson is that for our careers to grow, um, we of course we need to be extremely good in what we do, right? I think that the better we are in what we do, the better we can help other people, the better that we can that we can improve, right? Actually, it's funny because the better we are, the better we improve, right? So so I think we have to be very good in what we do, and for developers, there's three things I always say that developers have to be very good at. That's reading codes, writing codes, and delivering code, right? So we have to be very good at those three things. But there's one thing that I think that we all have to understand how we do and exactly why we do it. That's the fourth thing is solving problems, right? I think that developers are people that solve problems with reading, writing, delivering code, right? And so a lot of developers kind of forget a little bit about that, and they think that their focus is to write code in a programming language, right? Or to write code for a specific framework, right? Or something like this. And actually, that's the way we do it, right? But really what we're trying to do here is solving problems. So if you don't understand what kind of problem do you solve, right? What is the specific problem that you solve? Or what is the specific problem that you want to solve? How, going deep in understanding the problem, then it's very hard for you to grow your career, because then you have to jump from place to place, and you never go deep in anything, right? Because basically you end up getting stuck on the idea that the most important thing for you is to understand more the language, understand more the framework, right? And actually those are tools for us to achieve, to solve a certain problem. And so that those are the four things that I think that's very important for development. There's a fifth thing. It seems we're talking about people here. There's a fifth thing here. There is, helping others, right? Actually, I call this sharing, right? You have to share what you do, how you solve problems, because the way you're going to help other people is by solving a problem, right? So once you share how you solve the problem, or what is the problem you're trying to solve, that will build trust, right? In your career, that will build trust with people around you. So when people trust you, that's when your career can explode, right? So I think those are the five things like generically, I would say, be very good in reading, writing, delivering code, understand what problem you solve, right? And share what you know to build trust.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Interesting.
the sharing what you know is where people get that's where the people part, right? Because for you to
Mhm.
share, you have to understand, people's difficulty and what they're thinking, what problems they have, how to reach them. There's so many different things on sharing, right, that we have to talk about.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, well, lots of tips. And let's start with the first one. You mentioned like, reading code helps you
Right.
to improve your career.
Hmm.
And I like to think as reading code just as you would be reading books. Like when you're reading a book, you're kind of, it's like you're talking to the author. Like you,
Right.
maybe you can understand the reasonings, the expression, or what the person meant to. And maybe
Hmm.
with code, we can even relate that. And since we're the show, and do you think there is any relation or any possibility that open source might help people with reading code, for example?
Yeah, so I love what you mentioned about the book. I even thought you were going to make an analogy that I like to make, and it's very cool. I love the idea of the book because when you read books, right? We kind of tend to think that reading is just kind of read what's on the page, right? But when you're reading a book, you're not just reading what's on the page, right? It's not only words. When you're reading a book, you're actually playing a movie in your head, right? And so that's that for me, a book is a source code of the movie that plays in your head, right? Now, if you think about this as about code, right? What is code? Code is the written thing of a software that plays in your head too, right? So when you're reading code, you're actually playing that movie or that code, that software in your head. So I think that's why I totally agree with you. Open source is the best way for you to read code, right? Because then any software that you use that's open source, right? So for example, your IDE or the Java compiler or anything like this. Imagine what can you learn by running the Java compiler, right? Almost nothing, right? You say Java C, enter, okay, right? That's all you get, right? So for running that software, there's nothing in it. But if you read the source code of it, right, even if it's just a tiny little piece, then there's a lot of things for you to learn because when you play that thing in your head, you understand what the developer is trying to do. You understand what the problem that's going on. You understand the strategies that developers use it to solve a problem. And there's one thing that you do, Edson, that I'll let you explain that because you told me once that a lot of times when you did not know how to do something or you wanted to improve how to do something, you would find a project that had to do that same thing. And so, what would you do with that?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that when you're coding in your daily activities, you're just beating the same drum every single time. So it's hard to improve. And whenever we had like, these open source projects, and the nice thing is this all of this source code, just open source books, they would be available for you to read. And if you find a great project, in the early beginning of my career, I would get some open source projects and would just try to go through line by line and learn how better developers than me would be writing the code. And even those projects that were written that today we might consider that, well, the source code is not great, I would
Hmm.
learn how not to do it. So by
Right.
learning from by reading from multiple different sources, you know how to do one thing or how to do another one. And I think that one of the very early things that I learned with open source is that, well, we knew that we need to do logging in our systems. But I never
Hmm.
knew how to do logging properly. But by looking at the source code of great projects, I can tell that at the time I looked at the source code of the Spring Framework a lot to learn how they did logging because when I saw the log from Spring Framework, I saw, wow, that's a nice way for you to understand what's happening in the system. So maybe if I learn about with how they're doing that, I could improve the logging in my system. So I just I learned that, then I kept learning other stuff from other great developers in the world.
Yeah, I think that learning, look, there's no better way than learning from other people, right? So you got to learn from and basically, if you learn from someone that's better than you, that's done that better than you, then then that's like very, very positive, right? Because then you grow, right? Because you learn, and there's nothing better than being able to get any code from any of the top developers in the planet, right? You just can say, okay, so who's the top developer? Who's the developer that I think is probably the best developer in the world? Oh, that guy. So let me look at the open source code that he did, right? And then I can learn from him. And so I think this is totally amazing.
Yeah, another way to see the open source code that is available. And after I was like not a junior developer anymore, I started to improve. And when I think it's a way to make you humble, because if you're in that point in your career when you think that you're the best in the world, well, how do you know if you don't benchmark what you're doing, the quality of your code? And by looking at other great people doing code better than you, then I think then you find the right spot. How much you learned and how much you still need to learn. So yes, we're always learning from each other, but again, if you want to know how good are your skills, well, you can benchmark that by looking at other people's code. And in the past, before open source, you would only look at your colleagues, but then you would say that your skills are the average of your team, because you can't learn outside your bubble. And it's a way, open source is a way for you to expand your bubble.
Right. Yeah, being a bigger bubble, right? So the whole idea of being a bigger aquarium, right? So that's awesome. So Sebastien said that he might join before the end, right? So DJ Mady says, people are easy to work with. Last Saturday, I managed to steer a fantastic crowd of 1,000 American football fans in Austria. So congratulations, DJ Mady. That's awesome, man. So then Andres says, hi. Yes, as someone who relies on the logs of application to analyze problems, I encourage my developers how to write good logs. Yes, exactly. But it's one thing for you to encourage people to do that, right? But it's great, right? It's great that you're doing this. But then, when you say that you encourage your developers, right? The problem is that not every developer has a team leader or is part of a team, that there are people that they're trying to improve, and things like this. So a way for you to break out of that is that you can participate in an open source project, you can volunteer, or you can just even read the code of open source projects as a way for you to put yourself in a position to learn from other people. So that's awesome.
Oh,
hey, looks like here.
Hey, let's take a look how it's. I have green lights, green bars, so it looks like the connection is a bit better. It's not cutting for you this time?
No, it's good. It's good. I can hear you. That's awesome.
Okay, awesome. So, yeah, I don't know really what happened, because the connection was really good. I found this spot in the garden where the connection was better than the other spots. And just when you joined, things went crazy. I didn't have any connection anymore. And yeah. So I unplugged some stuff, because I have weird stuff with this Mac. Sometimes, depending on which port you are, it disturbs the signal. But yeah. But I could catch up some of your discussion, and it's already really interesting. And yeah. One thing about your career, I would like to ask you about the happiness of the developer. That's something really important, I think. I often ask this question: are you a happy developer? And I try to tell people, how can you become a happy developer? So there are all those things that you told. But one thing I want to focus on is about the satisfaction of coding. That's something really important, because when I was a kid, I remember this moment. I wrote my first line of code, and when I run the program, and that I realized what was happening, I had really this moment of satisfaction. We called it, someone called that, Seymour Papert called that the mindstorm. And what I try to say to developers is, try to remember this moment, and every time that you code, when you're satisfied with your code, try to remember this feeling, and that will really boost you. So it's just something that you have to keep somewhere in your head, but this moment of satisfaction. And I don't know what's your what are your opinion on that, Bruno and Edson? If it rings a bell for you as well. So
Yeah, so that's something that we call on the skill acquisition process, right? That's something that we call mark the spots, right? So when you do something right, and you have that feeling that I did it right? So mark the spot. Remember that your brain needs that. Your brain needs to remember the satisfaction that you had when you did that. Your brain needs to, because there's a lot of moments where we want to give up, that we are desperate, that we don't know what we're doing, right? That we feel that we are incompetent, right? That we think we're imposter. There's all kinds of those moments. But if you remember the moment that you know all those things are gonna happen, right? But if you remember that how happy you get when you fix the problem, right? When you deliver the code, when you see your customer thanking you, for example. Each person has a different motivation, let's say, right? But so at that moment, mark the spot, right? So say, okay, so that's what I want. Right? That's the thing that makes me going. And one thing that you said there, Sabi, that I think is very, very important is that a lot of people keep looking for motivation, right? So that's all kinds of motivation you can have. You can be motivated by the success of your customer. You can be motivated by the money that you're making. You can be motivated by, you're able to offer your family a great place. You can be motivated by lots of things, but the most important motivation that we can have is the internal motivation, right? That's actually the official name, right? It's internal motivation. That thing you just described, Sabi. That motivation that you have yourself, right? That you get pleasure by doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Not everyone is able to do that, and not you many times you're not able to do that on everything that you do, right? But if you can try to get on the most important things, if you can get this internal satisfaction, that's going to take you very, very, very far in your career, because you don't depend on anything else, right? So you can motivate yourself, and that's so important.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned about developer satisfaction. The first thing when you start asking this, I was thinking about, what can we do, right, to develop? And you can have bosses, and you can have leaders, you can have companies, you can have family members, you can have friends that you're going to help you be happy, right? But nothing beats having your own internal motivation. That's the thing that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And when you got that, you can feel it if you wake up in the morning and you are happy to start your day of work. That's a good sign that you have managed to get this thing. And
that's a very good discussion when you start your day of work, right? There's a very good discussion from a guy called Simon Sinek, and he says start with why, right? So once you know why you do things, then you can wake up every day in the morning and say, today I'm gonna do this again, right? Because I know why I'm doing it. And so I really love this. I actually been running why workshops, even because it has really helped me and lots of other people to start the morning by knowing why you're doing it. Makes a big difference.
I think you're a fan, Edson, as well. No, I think Simon is even helping Red Hat with his advice.
Yeah,
awesome. That's great. Yes.
No, yeah. Well, this is the first time hearing about this morning thing from Bruno, but I can relate. I really enjoyed the Start with Why from Simon Sinek. But I remember many times when we were still traveling around the world, when we were super tired. You were like, you didn't sleep in the plane, you were traveling already, you were hungry, you were like freezing, you were jet lagged. And when you had to find out why to wake up in the morning to do your job, I always remember, we're doing this because I'm here to help people and to help them in any way I can. That's why I'm doing it, and that's why I'm moving forward. So finding a personal why, I think it really helps you to move forward in your career.
For sure.
And I just saw here, Rose has a question in the chat. I think it's maybe we could answer that. Like, I'm new in the IT at the end of the DevOps engineer training, but I feel like I don't know anything. I need help with the prats before I start to apply. I think all of them, we reach at this point, I don't know anything. Is there something we can do about that?
Yeah, we never do, Rose. So I think this is the feeling. Well, let me start from the beginning. Okay, so Rose, there is a big problem in the software industry that is called imposter syndrome, right? Is the notion that you don't know anything and that you shouldn't be there, right? So I should not be here. No, why I'm here talking to all those people. So many people watching us online, right? So why I'm here, right? So I should not be here. I don't know enough to be here doing what I'm doing. Is this feeling that I don't know enough, right? And so a lot of people. So Rose, you're just starting. So you may hit that very strong along the. Maybe you're right now in that situation, right? That you think you need to learn more to start doing things. And the reason why this is very, very prevalent in our industry is the following, right? No one does. We never know what we're doing, right? Because there's either two situations. Either you don't know what you're doing because you're doing it for the first time, right? And it's a new problem, it's a new software, it's a new code that you're doing, because that's what we do, right? If we're just going to do the same thing, we just copy and paste the old code, right? So if we did that last week, we just copy the code and we don't need to do it again. So we are always doing something different. And that's not only for software developers, right? Any creative industry has the same problem, right? Anything that you're doing that's creative, you every time you're going to do it, it's going to be something new by definition, right? So you never did it. Now, so either you are in that situation that you feel incompetent because you've never done that, or you are bored, right? Because you've done that many, many times and you don't want to do it again, right? So you have to choose, Rose. Do you want to be bored? Do you want to be bored, or do you want to be feeling that you never did it, right? So, and of course you can be like halfway, right? Kind of you do some new things and some boring things, right? And then you can kind of mix and match. But this whole feeling that I don't know enough, it's part of our career, I guess, right? It's part of our profession, right? So I think that you have to learn how to do this a little bit. But the one thing you're saying here that I think is very important, Rose, is when you say you're new and I feel like I don't know anything. And that's exactly what happens when you're new, right? So here's the process. When you're learning, you have the impression, okay, I've learned that. I know everything, right? And I'm sure you know some people that just out of college, for example, and they're like, they are full of themselves, right? I know everything. I was talking to a friend of mine. They're just left. He was just in the first year of computer science school, and he had just learning to do something in JavaScript, and he's like, man, I can do anything now, right? I know everything. I'm like, yeah, you do, right? You do know everything, because that's the feeling that we have when you just start. We think that we know everything. Then we start doing things. And when we start doing things, we start saying, oh, I don't know that. Oh, I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't know that. And then we have that feeling, oh, I don't know anything. And then we get desperate, right? And then we kind of create our career to say, I have to learn everything because I want to get that feeling back, that feeling that I thought I knew everything, right? There's even a name for that. It's called the Kruger effect, right? It's the idea that when you learn what exists, what you know, it's very little, right? And so then you get desperate. So to be a good developer, you have to be able to live with that feeling, right? Because there's no way we're going to learn everything. There's no way for any of us that we can learn everything. And so we have to kind of decide what are the most important things for us to choose. And for me, the biggest difference between a junior and a senior is that the junior only knows what they know, and the senior knows about the things that he knows he doesn't know, right? And he's okay. So he knows, I know this bunch of things that I don't know, and it's okay. I don't need to know everything, right?
Yeah. And what you say, Bruno, about when you start and you think that you know everything, that's really a name. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Right. I will put the link in the chat because it's a complete opposite of the imposter syndrome. So it has been defined. You start with something, and I know I can relate to that. When I start my engineer school, we had classes about network. And I thought that I knew everything about network because I was able to set up a LAN party with friends. But then I started diving into the specifics, and I said, oh, I don't know anything about it. So,
Right.
but yeah, your whole life you will be, you will have this imposter uh, syndrome, and I love what you said. The senior knows that he don't knows, and that
Right.
will also help you saying to people, "I don't know," because when you are a
Mhm.
junior, someone asks you a question, and sometimes you don't. You want to give an answer, but with seniority, you will learn to say, I don't know. Especially us, we do a lot of public speaking as developer advocates, and at the end, you have all these questions from the audience, and that was a moment that I was really fearing in the beginning. But now, if I don't know the answer, I say, I don't know, but I know someone that knows the the answer, and I will look it up. So yeah, and
Right.
again, that is of being humble, humility. I think that's it comes back to this. So yeah.
Yeah. So let me I just want to point one thing about the senior know that he doesn't know, because I think that's the important thing, right? It's not going to make you a senior to just, oh, I know I don't know things, and so I don't need to learn anything, right? So that's not going to help you. But when we say that a senior knows what he doesn't know, he knows what he doesn't know. You understand what I'm thinking about? Talk about here, right? So he knows what he doesn't know. So he heard something. I don't know, Quarkus. Oh, I never heard of Quarkus before. Right? So what is Quarkus? Oh, Quarkus is a framework for me to develop a server-side application. Okay, so now I can get that information and save in my head oh, this is a framework to develop a server-side application, right? So I can save that in my head like this, and so at least I know that I don't know Quarkus, right? The problem with the junior is that the junior gets afraid of knowing what he doesn't know, right? Because he thinks he needs to necessarily learn, right? So, for example, Edson mentioned he is Spring. And then someone's like, oh, then I need to learn Spring, right? Because I don't know Spring. Edson mentioned Spring. Well, so yeah, you need to learn. So go find out what Spring is, right? And then you save that in your head, like, okay, that's what Spring is. And so the more things you don't know, the better equipped you're going to be to learn the things you need to know when they show up, right? And that kind of gets me to the question that Rose is talking about here. I don't even have the courage to start my resume and apply because I need to have some practice. And Rose, the most important thing that you can do for your career is to practice, right? Is to actually go do something. Instead of just being afraid of doing something, just go do something. Go do a project for yourself. Go do a project for your friends. Go do a project for your father, right? That's how I started, right? I did a software project for my father's bakery, right? So that's how I started, right? So go do a project for, for your church, for your club. Someone here says that, what was the sport that the guy said here? That's fans of hockey or football, right? Yeah, go do a project for your club, for your football club, or for your or go do a little software to organize your books in your bookcase. I don't know. Go do something that you find fun, that you see a need for, right? But you can say, but Bruno, if I go do a software for a bakery, why you build a software for your father's bakery instead of buying a software? Well, because we're developers, right? So we go solve problems. And of course, if you're not interested in solving the problem, that's okay. Just go buy a software. That's fine, right? But if you're interested in solving the problem, go solve the problem yourself, and then that's going to help you have practice. They're going to help you have real projects to put in a resume.
And the other way, maybe you mentioned it when I was not in the call, but is, well, open source projects can also be a good start, and it can start. You go in the GitHub issues, and you sometimes it's marked good for beginners or good for the first time, and you can check this, and you can start contributing with small stuff. So that's another way to go, that I could recommend for people, and if it goes well, you will enter the community, and you will see we have amazing communities. We are really lucky in the IT to have all these communities that will help you.
Yeah.
And that's another way of starting doing stuff. And another one that also that you also can do is code katas. Yeah,
Right.
because I do Arsham Marts, and I always tell people that I have to practice my katas. Not every morning, but I should. But you can do the same with code. And there's a lot of different katas. You can invent your own kata, and sometimes just practice it. And one I really like is the tennis score. From a tennis game, and you implement that. Or player A, player B scores, and you create the algorithm that do 15-15, 15-30. It's pretty easy. It becomes a bit tricky when you are 40-40 with advantage, but it's really funny to learn. And you can pick any language and try to do that every. Some people say do it every morning. Do you code katas like a martial art? Maybe not. Do it whenever you want to do it, or whenever you want to discover a new language. You can start with code katas. It's another advice that I can give to people. Yeah.
Now, I have just to say one thing, because I love that you mentioned two different things. You mentioned open source and code katas, right? And so, and interesting enough, each one of those focus on a different type of skill. We have two big types of skills, right? Is the hard skills and the soft skills. And a lot of people kind of confuse what is the hard skill and soft skill, because, unfortunately, we developers, we think that, hard skills are technical skills. So that's the one I should focus on. But we forget that the technical in that description is not technology, it's technique, right? So the hard skill is the one that has a technique, right? So for example, typing on the keyboard, right? That is a hard skill because it has a technique that you have to follow to learn how to type in the keyboard fast. So when you do a code kata, that's exactly what you're doing, right? You're doing a hard skill, that's the language skill. And language skills are awesome. It's very important that you learn the hard skills, right? Because the better you get at this, so that's why you do a code kata, right? Or a kata in an martial. Because what you do is that you repeat, right? You do the same exercise many, many times. You try to solve it many, many times. You repeat it in a way that ingrains in your brain how to do that. So that's one thing. So that's the hard skill. Very important. Now, the other type of skill is the skill that developers kind of try to ignore. Oh, yeah, soft skills are communication skills. No, they're not. Soft skills are pattern matching skills. Soft skills are malleable. They're not soft because they're easy. They're soft because they're malleable. Every time you apply, it's different. So software development, guys, is a soft skill. It's not a hard skill. So software development is malleable. Every time you do it, you approach a problem, it's a completely different problem. So problem solving is a soft skill. So when you mention go participate in open source, it's a soft skill, right? Because it requires you, every open source project is different. Every problem in open source project is different, right? So as a developer, you have to practice both the hard skill and the soft skills of software development. So I love that you mentioned those, open source and code katas, because they touch in different types of skills. And why this is important? Because depending on the type of the skill, the way you practice is different, right? You practice languages by repeating, like you practice typing the keyboard by repeating. But you don't practice software development by repeating, right? You practice software development by doing different things, right? So the more different things you do, the better developer you get, right? So that's the difference between soft skills and hard skills. Hard skills you repeat, softer skills you do different things, right? So go think about this in your practice, and that's going to really help you choose the right practice for your skills.
I'm seeing a comment here from Peter Souza in the chat, like in uni you had the issues because you didn't know, you had like 300 students for one professor. But when I started in a company, there is always someone who can help.
Yeah.
So emphasizing the part of we can help people, we can be helped as well. And I think we can mention a bit about the role of a mentor in your career. Can you elaborate something about that, Bruno?
Yeah, having a mentor, and actually that's we use this word mentor, and then it kind of thinks that, you have to have someone very important or someone that's, but just having someone that can help you, right? Because the biggest problem that we have is that we get stuck. right? We're trying to do something, we get stuck, and then we kind of, what we do, we go online, for example, or we try to see code, open source code, but then we don't actually know what we're trying to do because we are stuck, right? If we knew what to do, we wouldn't be stuck, right? It would just be hard to do it, right? But when we're stuck, we don't know exactly what needs to be done. And so a lot of times, if you can have someone that can listen to what's going on and can say, have you thought about that? Have you tried that? Right? And that's a great way for to help you get unstuck, right? And sometimes, let me tell you a story about a mentor, because I love this story about a mentor. So there's this guy here in Brazil. His name is Pedro Carrijo. And Pedro was, when I met him, he had about 13 years old, right? And he now must be 18 or something. Has been a few years now. But he was, and he looked like he was 9, right? He was like a tiny little kid, and he had like a very, very difficult health problems when he was a kid. And so so he looked very tiny. And Pedro, he learned how to program himself, right? He didn't have anyone teaching him, and he was sick in the hospital, so he learned how to program by himself when he was about 11, right? So when I met him, he had a few years of software developer. Now, for me, when I look at Pedro's codes when I met him, it was like a big, like this big spaghetti code, right? And he would mix things, and he was not very sure what he's doing, but he was doing it, right? So how he learned it? He learned it by programming games for himself. He learned it by doing software for his father. He learned it by doing software for his mother. And Pedro had an awesome mentor. Not only he had a technical mentor, because Pedro got, like, when he was 11 or 12 or something, he got into a university curriculum, right? So he had a professor there that helped him learn more. So he had a technical mentor with his professor. But more important than that, he had his mother, right? And his mother told me, he said, Bruno, Pedro would come to me with his computer problems, so software problem. And she said, I'm a seamstress, right? I sew clothes. I know nothing about computers. I know nothing about programming, right? But he would ask me things, and what I would do is just ask him back, right? He would say, Mom, this is not working. How should I sew that? And I would ask, is there alternatives for you to do this? And he would try to explain to me alternatives. And she would ask, and do you see any of those alternatives? Could that solve the problem? And he would say, let me try, right? So he had a mentor that, is funny enough, a mentor that did not know was actually more helpful than a mentor that knows, right? Because then the mentor only asks questions, and that you figure out, right? So, finding someone that can work with you to help you figure out things, right? To discuss things with you. It's awesome. Of course, if that person is also technical, right? Then, it can help you not fall into big traps, right? Pedro's mother could not do that, right? So he did fall in some traps, right? But, just finding someone that you can discuss, that can guide you, that can ask you good questions. That is an awesome way to have a great mentor.
Yeah, it's the meiotics, right? The Socratic method. You just help people just by asking questions. Did you do that? And as a mentor, I can see myself, because my son, now he's a sophomore in a computer science degree, and he's always asking things, and I never give him the answer. I always say, well, did you try taking a look at this? Did you, would you check if this other thing would give you a better result? So yeah, that's what some people do. Some, like, stubborn parents do with their kids, and maybe some other mentors in your career can do that for you as well.
Right. Yeah. I understand it's a little frustrating for the kid, right? I just want to answer. Come on, right? But in the long run, that's a lot better, especially because there are going to be situations where you can't really help, right? So, for example, I do a lot of mentorship with career, right? And just the past few days, we had I know a friend of mine that had such a big career problem, right? So really, really big. And look, there's nothing you can just tell people, oh yeah, go and do it, right? Because it's their career that's on the line, right? So they have to be convinced that this is the right thing to do. They have to really trust that this is the right thing to do. So they have to believe in it, right? And it's very, even if you trust someone, it's very hard to just believe on a very hard thing, right? If I tell you, yeah, you know what, you should quit your job and go do that, right? The person gonna say, no way, man. I'm not gonna quit my job. Are you crazy? I have a family to feed, right? So it's very hard to believe someone. Now, if you ask questions and the person kind of, understand what's going on and they analyze the situation and they come to that conclusion, right? Then they buy into it and they can do the very, very hard things that needs to be done, right? If you just tell them what to do, then they're going to say, no, this is too hard. That's not going to solve the problem. I'm not going to do it, right? And so, so being a good mentor has to be this kind of thing. And sometimes, and you're like dying to say, look, this is so easy, right? I mean, just got to tell him, right? And that's what I would do. But even the things that they're very obvious, sometimes they don't fit on the person's lifestyle. They don't fit on the particular situation. They're not going to fly well inside the company. I had a problem with a friend some time ago, right? That I really wanted she to do something. And I was like pushing for it. You should do this. You should do this. You should do this. And it got to a point that she got so upset, right? Because she did not, it was just too big of a jump for her. And she said, no. I'm not. We almost had a friendship crisis because of that, right? But then I have a friend of mine that told me, Bruno, wait, you're pushing too much, man. It's not the right time for her to do that. You're trying to get her to do something that she's very afraid of doing it, and then I stop it. And the good thing is that I just there is a little bit of seed planted, and a couple of years later, she did that thing by herself with my help, but when she was ready to do, and it was a huge success. If she had done 2 years before, it would be a completely failure because she did not believe in it, right? And so sometimes as a mentors, we have to be calm and just kind of, let people, understand the situation by themselves, right? So that's the thing that I've learned with my dad, by the way, right? So many years ago, I had a big fight with my dad, a big fight, right? I was a teenager. My dad wanted me to do some things. I did not want to do it, or I think I wanted to do some things and he did not want to do it. So we had a big discussion. We were on the beach and I kicked sand on him and I got really pissed off and I yelled at him right in the middle of the beach and I went home and, I drove my car and he drove his car behind me and I was like really mad. And when he got home, I kind of slammed the door in the elevator door in his face, and I did not want to talk to him. And so when I was opened the door for the house, right, for apartments, the phone was ringing, right? So I answered the phone, and the voice on the other side says, "Bruno, Newton Gadgets from Sun Microsystems wants a trainee, right? And he says the job is yours if you want it." And so, that moment, right? My dad is still on his beach clothes, right? We sat on his computer to write my first resume, right? So my dad pissed it off with me, not wanting me to do that, right? He helped me to do what I wanted to do, not what he wanted me to do. And so I joined Sun in 1995. A week after that, the first public version of Java was announced, right? And so if my father had told me, Bruno, you not do that, I'm not gonna help you, right? I'm gonna stop paying your university or something like that, right? So if my father had pushed me, because he had the power, if my father had pushed me, I would not have joined Sun, and maybe the Java man would not exist today, right? So for me, I learned it from that moment. I learned that it's not my job to get people to do what I want them to do. It's my job to help people do what they want to do, right? And I think this is the biggest lesson I've learned in my whole life.
Great, and I think it's a really great advice, and even someone's mentioned it in the chat here. Leading them to the solution, not showing it right away, is a great advice, Bruno. Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. Yes. DJ says yes. It's hard sometimes, right, to hold back and let them find the solution themselves. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a skill. It's
Especially,
a skill you have to learn as
yeah,
well.
especially when you have like a relationship inside a company, right? And you know that if the person takes longer, then the team suffers, right? So you want things done, right? So so sometimes you have to balance that, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, and DJ Maddie has my mentor was my grandfather showing me the first steps on Sinclair ZX. Oh, awesome,
Awesome.
DJ Maddie. One day I want to hear more about that. We will make that happen because
That's
I
awesome.
love all those stories and yeah.
So
Let
so
me, yeah.
since I've just mentioned the story about my dad, last year I did one thing, right? It's kind of to honor my father, right? I created the International Software Developer Career Day, right? And
Okay.
so it's basically, yeah. So we're doing it again this year, right? It's on August 6th and 7th. So August 6th is the International Developer Career Day, right? It's also the International Day of Beer, right? So I think it combines very, very well, right? And I chose that date because it's also 42 days after my father passed away, right? So it's like it's like and so I want to invite you, all of you, to be part of that, right? So let me just kind of show you really quick here. So it's completely free, and it's 2-day event. That's a lot of a lot. We're launching today. So thank you very much for all you guys
Yeah.
here. Let me launch this
Do
today. So we launched this
Do you
today.
have a
It's
link? As well?
so it's is it what?
A link that we can paste.
Yes, I'm gonna put the link right here. Right go here to this link here.
Oh,
Right, it's completely free. It's gonna be 2 days. The first day it's presentations and discussions. Right, so like live discussion like this with top speakers and top developers. And the second day is gonna be workshops to help your career move. Right, so if you want to just come to this URL right there, and I'll tap the URL here on the chat also, right? But the whole plan is to spend 2 days discussing the developer career, getting your career moving. And so I invite everyone to participate. You're the very, very, very first people that
wow,
learn about
cool.
this, right? So it was we agreed with the team to yesterday. We put the page today, right? So you're the very, very first person that know about that. So thanks very much. I see that you put the link there. So awesome. So thanks very much. And I really invite everyone to participate because last year was awesome. We had basically we have very open conversation with people, so you can have top developers, we can have top open source developers, Java champions, all of that, having discussions with you. So that's great. And I should have arranged it with you guys before we started, but since we had some technical problems, I'm going to just kind of put you guys in the spot because you two are going to be the first two speakers that I'm inviting to join the event. So if you can, anytime on August 6th or 7th, I'll arrange the agenda to be so you can be there. So you two are the first two speakers being invited to participate.
Awesome. I have to check my agenda because I think it's during my PTO, but maybe the 7th. But I will I will check that with you.
Yes, whatever. Right? If you can, right? I'll send you the details later and how to how we can get your talk arranged and everything. But so anyway, that's the thing I want to say. Can I stop sharing here, or you guys close that?
Okay, and we are already at the top of the hour, and I don't know if there's a stream right after on the channel, on the OpenShift channel, but to be on the safe side, I don't think so. But to be on the safe side, we're going to close it now. Sorry for me being late into the party, but hopefully it was working well at the end. And thank you so much also, Edson, to jump in at the last moment. I was thinking, Edson, help, please. And thank you so much. And thank you, Bruno. It was an awesome discussion. Remember, everyone, right after this stream, it will be available as a replay on the YouTube channel of Red Hat Developers. There's a playlist with all the shows. This one will be available right after when we finish this stream. Thank you, everyone. We are back in 15 days for the last show of the summer. And then we take a break and we come back after that. Next week is Tech Talk with Edson. I think so. I don't know who your guest is, but people will discover that. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thanks very much. Thanks, Sebastian, for inviting me. Thanks, Adson, for being here and having a great discussion. And thank you that's watching us. Right, everything that we do here is for you. So thanks a lot, and I see you guys online in the next episode. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
I pressed the endings spinning thing.